Okay, councillors, we'll resume again. We have a further two submitters now, and this is the 10:30 submitter who's here, who is Susan Howlett and Chris Becks. They're from Total Equipment and Machinery Team Limited. What you have is you have 10 minutes to make your presentation. If you finish within the 10 minutes, there'll be an opportunity for questions from the councillors. If you take the whole 10 minutes, there'll be no questions. So there's a clock behind you, which will tell, you can see it up there, 9:58. And then at 1 minute to go, you'll get a buzz or a bell. So if you could wrap it up at that point in time. Okay, thank you.
Firstly, we'd like to address the lack of consultation. Oh. Yes? Okay, we'd like to address the lack of consultation in the first instance because we feel that that's very pertinent to this submission and it raises doubt to the efficiency excuse me, and depth of accuracy of the information the Council has received by AECOM Consultants Limited. The process in the first instance, whereby reportedly 359 letters were sent to ratepayer stakeholders, detailed the proposed changes. The first communication letter was dated the 25th of June, inviting those interested to come to a meeting on the 26th of June. It was received by some people on the 27th, and in our case, we were advised by a neighbour over the back fence on the 28th of June. And that was 2 days after the scheduled meeting. So as a direct result of that, we missed our first meeting and a subsequent meeting on the 9th of July was called as a result of our request. We were told at the meeting that the information was available on the council website. That's not well received because it was a bit patronising and quite dismissive. It soon became apparent that the consultancy had little, if any, understanding of the demographic of the business community affected by this proposal. The majority of said businesses are either directly involved in the heavy transport industry or have deliveries and pickups using heavy vehicles. We therefore question the integrity and accuracy of the recommendations to Council from this report. We do not believe that the consultancy has conducted a fair or reasonable information gathering exercise, and we think they have a poor understanding of the location application as it's currently being used. The fact that the decision to close off part of Tasman Road would compromise our day-to-day operations and many other businesses like us is of serious concern to us, but this seemed to carry little weight. Our business moved from Latham Court off State Highway 1 to Gilbeck Place in February 2018. The access for large overspec transporters was a major factor in the decision for us to move, and transporting overspec machinery forms part of our daily operation. The Council has designated the area for commercial purposes and has a mandate to take into account the costs to other users. This is detailed, well, there's a lot of detail about that when deciding on the advisability of bus priority, and that's page 14 of the Passenger Transport Action Plan. Tasman Road has good visibility and is predominantly straight for heavy vehicles to proceed without tight turns necessary. It would certainly benefit from the upgrades suggested to curb and channel and to widen the existing dimension of the road. The closure of part of this road will force heavy traffic to make more turns, and in fact up to 4 if coming from Te Kowhai East Road to get to businesses between Chalmers Road and Foreman Road intersections. This will result in a loss of time for deliveries, but it will also compromise the bitumen integrity at these junctions. The damage heavy vehicles can do in a short time is no better illustrated than the recent need to reseal and strengthen Arthur Porter Drive. The vision for Tasman Road to look less like a country road is reasonable. However, the practicalities of closing part of it is in direct conflict with the commercial zoning and daily application for this particular area. Now, you've got some photos on sheet 1 that show the congestion already being experienced at Gilbeck Place. Tasman Road traffic counts show currently 4,500 vehicles per day, with projections from council to go to 10,000. The priority bus lane would service 9 buses. How is this justified? We look at the logic of the numbers alone and find that it makes absolutely no sense to spend money on upgrading Tasman Road and then closing part of it to through traffic. The amount of heavy vehicles commuting in this area is disproportionate due to the surrounding businesses. Car drivers have little patience when being held up behind slow-moving transporters trying to negotiate hard turns. Similarly, motorists have no appreciation for the difficulty of such heavy vehicles to make emergency stops if faced with the need to avoid nose-to-tail or oncoming traffic overtaking due to such impatience. This dynamic is very common on the open road, and there is no reason not to expect that creating more congested roads will inevitably lead to such accidents where currently there are few. And again, I refer to the photo handout where you can see the congestion on page 2 and how a 9-metre road like Gilbeck is reduced to a 1-lane road. And so if you've got 2 transporters traversing a corner from opposite directions, that's problematic to say the least. The future road has yet to be designated on the map in relation to the 6-metre access laneway, which is already built between Chalmers and Gilbeck. We were told at the 9th of July meeting that construction of the future road has been started and the laneway road will join the future road somewhere. Surely this is pertinent to informed decision making, as without knowing the dimensions of the road, the position of it, and the intersection layouts, there is no way to make an informed decision. What we do know is that there is no roundabout access proposed onto the future road intersection from Arthur Porter Drive, which means any right-hand turn from Arthur Porter onto the future road, or vice versa, will take up most of the available road space to manoeuvre if you're driving a heavy transport or an over-spec one. Cycle lanes are proposed on the future road and Tasman Road, and for reasons already stated, we see this as compromising the dimensions of available road further. Again, we have no idea what the planned dimensions of the future road are. However, the practical application of 2 oncoming transporters safely passing each other while also avoiding cyclists on their left is a recipe for potential disaster. We're in the industry, we've seen it, it happens. So Chris is going to take over and offer a possible solution. So I'll hand it over to him.
The proposed overbridge to go to the base, the proposed overbridge to the base goes over the service lane which runs parallel to Tasman Road. It stops short at the railway line of Tasman Road. This is the main reason for giving a limited area to adjoining the side of the overbridge for bus priority. At the 9th of July meeting, we questioned why don't we extend the bridge or turn the bridge around. We were told that there would be financial constraints which made this not possible. We proposed that the bridge be turned around, given a span over Tasman Road to the transport hub, and finish on the base side with the pedestrian crossing over the service lane, in keeping with the other areas of the car park and access amenities to the base. We estimate that the service lane may have 500 vehicles a day, including those using the car parks to the east side of the laneway. As previously stated, Tasman Road currently has a traffic count of 4,500, expected to go to 10,000 according to council projections stated in July 9 meeting. If the bridge was turned around, there would be no need to build a future road for Tasman. No need to build the future road, as Tasman Road could remain open to all traffic with a reduced speed limit for further safety. Buses would be able to pull in and out of the service lane on the east side of the transport hub, hence all road users would be catered for safely. And you could see that on the map on A. You could simply turn the bridge around and Tasman Road would remain open with a reduced speed.
When you moved into the new site, or when you were preparing for that, were you aware that a railway station was proposed at some stage in the future for that area of Tasman Road? That was showing in the district plan as being the case?
We were told that there would be a possible transport hub in Rotokauri, but not particularly on Tasman Road.
So you didn't actually see the district plan then, or you saw something that didn't have that marked?
We were only informed that there would be a possibility of a transport hub in Rotokauri, but not particularly on Tasman Road, no.
Did your plan, I presume you had a planner that was doing your application, consent application, did they not report anything
no, we
about
bought
that?
a turnkey building, so
Okay.
basically it was done in-house, and once the building was built and established, we took it over.
Sure, thanks.
Councillor Mark.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Chris. Hi, Susan. Thank you for submission. Can you explain turning the bridge around, what that actually means?
So basically, instead of the proposed overhead bridge crossing over the railway line and the base, let it cross the railway line and Tasman Road.
Okay, because that would go down into land that we don't own down the other side. Is it, or where are you proposing it comes down?
So it would cross Tasman Road on the east side, and it would come down on the land that council proposes to put the car park and the park and ride facility.
Okay, I might be reading that wrongly then. Okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just one quick question. The council predictions are 4,500 vehicles a day, up to 10. Is there a separation between how many of those are trucks and how many are ordinary motor cars?
On the July 9 meeting, we were told there was 4,500 vehicles, 3,000 one way, 1,500 the other. There was no clarification on what type they were.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have Roderick.
The map, is it possible when submitters come up that we can be pointed out where their property is on the map? We've worked out where yours is, but it took a while. Sorry, just as we start each one, if that's all right. Thanks.
The next submitter is Roderick Albridge. Are you there? Oh, just come forward, please, Roderick. Up this way. Roderick, you're submitting as an individual. Are you a local resident in that area, or?
Not in that area, I'm in Silverdale.
Oh, okay.
I've lived there for 13 years
Yeah.
nearly.
Curtis Gold.
And, yes, so my main claim
Yeah,
to
you have 5 minutes to make your submission, and a bell will go at 4 minutes. So if you're shorter than the 5 minutes, we will have an opportunity for questions. Okay, thank you.
Yes, so my main claim to your attention is that I don't have any extra growing. I'm just making my submission in wanting the best for the future of Hamilton, Waikato and New Zealand and beyond. I don't wish to make much change from the my original submission. I mainly wish to emphasise some of the main points. The proposed changes will not provide a safe or effective transport hub, even for the trial Hamilton to Auckland commuter service. The problem seems to be that not enough public land has been reserved for a transport hub, so that there is no space between Tasman Road and the station. This leaves the council in a bit of a quandary as with no way of providing for a hub where buses, taxis, etc. could efficiently deliver and pick up passengers without blocking Tasman Road traffic to the normal heavy vehicles, or having Tasman Road form a barrier between the pedestrian, cycling and other traffic and the station. Nor is there space there for shelters, assembly areas, park and ride, etc. And nor is there provision on the eastern side for easy access or other facilities such as bike shelters and so on. The pedestrians and cycles would be unable to ride right across to the western side. They'd have to use steps or a lift in the present design. So that's the basic problem, is that not enough public space has been reserved around the proposed area, and that's why it's been next to impossible for the council to provide a suitable hub. And so the other thing is that the traffic, the kinds of traffic are going to be changing greatly in the next 10 or so years. Much more different kinds of traffic that needs to be able to interchange quickly and efficiently. And so that includes all sorts of things, especially electric vehicles of all kinds, from scooters, cycles, right through to minibuses and buses, not to mention transport as a service and possibly self-driving vehicles. And of course, the revival as rail as a main means of transport. So it's a more general problem than just the Rotokauri hub, and I think the council should take it as a wake-up call for the need to ensure efficient transport hubs right over the city and, of course, the rest of the Waikato. The other thing is that the making provision for safe interaction of the various modes of transport. At the moment, the cyclists and the pedestrians are required to share a common path, and that's especially with e-scooters and electric bikes and things, it's not going to be a safe way of doing things. So those are the main points I wish to emphasise.
Thank you. Yeah, we have time for one question. Councillor Ziggy.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Roderick, for your presentation. Can I just clarify, so you're worried about that we are not future-proofing for the possibilities of all these extra modes of transport, that it's still not enough from what you can see that we're doing?
No, well, it's basically the public space that's needed for the efficient facilities is just not been reserved in that case, and it's not easy to see how it can be possibly shifting the hub slightly to a place where there's better access on both sides, or somehow acquiring bigger area. But yes, that's the basic cause of the problem that you find yourselves with.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
I understand there is Ross Windust. Are you waiting for someone? Where is he? Is he still in the? Oh, he's outside. Okay. It's Ross Windust, is it?
My name?
Yep, just take a seat at the table there. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and if you can, within the 10 minutes, there'll be an opportunity for questions, but we'll chop you off at 10 minutes if you're still going. At 9 minutes,
Hopefully it won't be that long.
no, 9 minutes, the bell will go, so if you could just wrap it up if you're still going at that point in time.
Chair, can we just have indication if there's a property on the
Oh,
map
yeah.
that's of interest that's
No.
to be referred to?
No, I'm not. I'm a ratepayer, and we own property in Hamilton. I'm a business, my wife and I are business owners. We employ staff. You'll be, what I've written is not about the as I say, I don't have a road, I'm not connected to the road, but I am connected to how council has gone about this. And that's why I'm here. So originally, I wrote that we were diametrically opposed to the way which council has tried to sneak this Tasman Road closure without proper due process. Your process is not honest, from what I see. The council support for businesses in the affected area is, to say the least, anti-business, in my view. The way in which this is unfolded is disingenuous, to say the least. The very fact that the date for submission has been extended tells one that the council, probably a hard word, doesn't care about business ratepayers in the affected area, or it is ignorant. The council seems to be more interested in filling the globalist aims of Agenda 21. We support infrastructure expenditure in Hamilton City. We do not support passenger rail in the form that it is proposed. We will not stop the rail hub, but we will challenge at every stage the closing of Tasman Road in the way in which it is laid out in the pretty maps, etc., that you've provided on your website. We do support rail freight when and where it pays its way. To further expand our reasons in opposing the closing of Tasman Road is as follows. And there was a letter sent out on the 25th of the 7th. You had a neighbourhood meeting on the 26th. People received letters on the 27th. Not quite sure how you expect to get by, and really, to be fair. Everybody that I speak to, when you explain what you've done, they're not impressed, to be fair. I do have some questions. Did HCC ensure all the affected businesses received this notification? Does the HCC know when the notices were sent, were received by the intended recipients? How many were posted? Never got an answer to that. It is rumoured that the HCC have or are purchasing 2.8 hectares of land nearby. If so, will this be large enough for your proposed park and ride? Why don't you work with the present rail station that you have and get the passenger rail fantasy working first? After all, it's never going to pay in my lifetime as it is too slow and doesn't connect direct with Auckland Airport as I write. The Auckland rail end is a socialist mess, and it is. Why not dedicate a bus lane to Auckland? The airport bus from downtown Hamilton is cheap and works well, better than the present rail system ever will. Train, yes, but not what we have. If you want to take New Zealand back to the early rail ages, this is what this will end up being. You have to get buy-in from business and the public, fast trains, and efficient time saving at the Auckland end. An hour or less to Britomart, at least. Billions of dollars, folks. My questions, have HCC surveyed the traffic users that traverse Hamilton to Auckland daily and vice versa? How will the present passenger rail make business more efficient? How many cars will passenger rail to Auckland take off the road? As a nation, we're facing tough economic times that are going to impact New Zealand, caused by a worldwide downturn. Ladies and gentlemen, it won't be pretty. Time and efficiency will be the essence in being able to conduct business. After all, if we can't make transport more efficient, who will be around to fund this questionable means of passenger transport? Weak business, lost jobs, not a good look. Get the Auckland end sorted out first. Get fast trains direct to the airport and other destinations. Get all these things in place before building the hub you're proposing. If you get the recipe right, HCC will have to move the proposed hub further north, more room, better buy-in from other councils, maybe. Do not rush into this Auckland thing. It will not be a silver bullet. By closing Tasman Road and building a hub, what will this expenditure change vehicle numbers wise to Auckland? Think buses, perhaps, not passenger rail. What's the return on investment? Do not close Tasman Road. HCC are challenging business, ratepayers, property rights by their action and this lack of consultation, in my opinion.
You say in there that you actually use the word that the council's sneaking this through, and you also question the council's honesty with it. How do you reconcile that with the fact that the proposal to put a transport hub in here and sever Tasman Road has been in the district plan for some years? How is that sneaking it through?
Because Joe Blogg's average never even looks at the plan. You've got a thing here, I've got a piece of writing here. It goes back to 2006. Now, Joe Blogg's average, us business guys, to be fair, don't go and read this fine print. You know, devil's always in the detail, isn't it? What I'm saying is, you didn't go and see, you see, I'll just put this up here. Now, you will have seen that. Anybody seen that? We'll just pass it around. The consultation of this piece of council information was excellent. The council man actually turned up on our doorstep. Then we got it in the mail. So if that can work for closing down a street from 6 to 9, 9 to 6, sorry, and this here, and you don't even talk to some of the main stakeholders on Tasman Road, and you're saying that's not, it's got a problem.
Well, I'm just saying that it's been in the plan for years. It's an awfully slow way of sneaking it through. It's been there for a long time.
No, I disagree.
The intention to do that.
I think the intention, just of your timing, doesn't stack up, to be fair.
Thank you.
thanks, Mr Windust. Looking at the fact that your business is in Frankton, not over this area, I'm just sort of interested in you expanding on your comments a bit more, that you're saying this council seems to be more interested in fulfilling the globalist aims of Agenda 21, which is a term and an organisation I haven't heard of for about 15 years. So I was wondering if you could expand on that a bit, plus also your description of the socialist mess. I'm not sure whether you were referring to the council or to the central government or both. Could you expand on them both a bit?
Probably both in Auckland. I mean, just look at the mess we've got. Can't even get to the airport.
We're in Hamilton, though.
I understand. I understand you.
So what's the...
You want me to expand on Agenda 21? I haven't got all day, to be bluntly honest. There's something, perhaps, with respect, you could check out yourself. It's not 15 years old. It's right looking at us in the face, to be blunt. But that's another story.
What's that got to do with the
Well, it
question
has a lot to do with
Tasman Road?
Climate change. It has a lot to do with emissions, because that's what you're doing. You want to start up a train, but who's going to buy into the thing? Who's going to wait 3 hours? With respect, you know, I've travelled the world and I understand trains, and they're great things, but this isn't. Let's try it first. Let's make it, just get a few of the bugs out of it. It's too slow. And our rail gauge doesn't allow for speed. So I'm not quite sure what you're doing, to be honest.
Okay, thanks very much for your submission.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
No worries. Mark, unfortunately, is Mark about somewhere? Oh, here we are. The staff didn't get your surname, but you're representing Modern Transport, is that correct? Would you like to come forward, please? It's... There's one from Robin Ratcliffe. Is that the one who you're representing?
That's right, yes.
Okay. He's the owner of Modern Transport, is my understanding. Mark, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you.
And at 9 minutes, a bell will go. So if you could wrap it up at that time, or if you're shorter, then 10 minutes was opportunity for questions from the councillors. So.
Thank you very much. Well, my name's Mark Flyger. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Modern Transport Group. Our group employs roughly 350 people. We have business interests at both ends of this proposed road closure, opposite sides of the hub, excuse me. And so obviously we're very concerned about the effect on our business of the road closure. We adopt the comments Mr Windust just made, and I think I'd like to add that this council has a responsibility in how it spends ratepayers' money, and in a broader sense, the fact that there's money on offer by central government for an ill-conceived rail solution is not justification for this council to willy-nilly spend money, and a mature decision is required. And as Mr Ratcliffe said in the Waikato Times recently, this proposal would not even reach our boardroom table. Excuse me, I'm not used to public speaking, so our concerns are the cost to our business of having to negotiate the amended or the proposed road. We move heavy transport trailers in excess of 44 metres long. We do that probably 2 movements on average per day. On top of that, we have truck and trailer units moving between our various sites, and Tasman Road is the current route that they take. We would probably have 10 traffic movements a day of the truck and trailer type units, and we also have a number of utes going between our various sites on a daily basis as well. So we've worked out the cost of this proposed road closure on our own business, and it's roughly $750 at least per day, which doesn't sound much, but that's just the raw cost, and on top of that there's the time of the staff, the lost time in the new route that would be required, and the inconvenience. So a lot of our units won't negotiate a left turn into the proposed new road, and then a right turn into Arthur Porter Drive, then a right turn into Chalmers Road, and then a left turn back onto Tasman Road. Our vehicles will actually block those roads on each of those turns. So it's going to create traffic chaos. On top of that, I've travelled the world like Mr. Windus obviously has, and I've never seen an urban initiative in an industrial zone. You're proposing mixing oil and water, and we have safety concerns, safety issues. Health and safety is very much at the forefront of our business model now, and we wouldn't entertain a proposal like this on health and safety grounds alone. I think our other concerns were to do with cyclist safety, and the other, I can't personally see where these cyclists are actually even coming from, because the nearest residential area is in on the other side of Te Rapa Strait. The Rotokauri residential area is a significant distance away, and the roads are already quite fast-moving roads in that area, and you'd be out of your mind to attempt riding a cycle, a push bike, even with cycle lanes and that sort of thing. So it just doesn't seem to make sense from a cyclist point of view. I picked up the point that this has been notified in the district plan for some time. Well, I think a transport hub has definitely been notified in the district plan, and no one's had an issue with that. And my understanding is Tainui accepted or supported that on the basis that it was a bus transport hub, and rail's been introduced, I'd imagine, from the inception of the current Labor government. We're not opposed to rail transport. In fact, we'd welcome it, but it has to be high speed, and we manufacture large transport solutions, trailers, transport solutions for our customers. They come to us and say, look, this is what we want to achieve. We want rapid rail, we all do. But the right way to achieve it is to start with a clean slate and say, right, let's get the infrastructure in place first. The right rail gauge, there's some soft spots, I understand, on the way from Hamilton to Auckland that need to be rectified first. And then we should look at, once we've got the gauge right, the track right, then you get the rolling stock. Once we've got the rolling stock, we then get the infrastructure in place in terms of stations on the way from Hamilton to Auckland. And then you're in business. You can actually, once those things are in place, you can actually introduce a service. But to do it backwards, like is proposed, is costly, it's inefficient, and it's irresponsible, in our view. Thank you.
A couple of questions here. Councillor Dave, you're first up.
Your business started small and grew, didn't it?
Started 44 years ago, yes, very small, and it did grow.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Just in terms of the speed of rail trips, are you aware that the rail trip initially is slated to be 2 hours 25 minutes and that the average speed of a car going at the same time to Auckland Monday to Friday is 2 hours, between 2 hours 35 and 2 hours 40 minutes to get to the centre of Auckland, downtown, same sort of apples with apples comparison?
I can get to downtown Auckland in most days of the week, an hour and a half.
And a half.
At the regular speed.
At that time,
At
day?
that time. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. I've done it.
Good.
I do it regularly.
You should carpool because a lot of people would want to go with you. But apart from that, our staff have informed me that there's correct turning radius or circle at the corners that you're worried about, concerned about, of the Link Road, or I can't remember what they call it, and Arthur Porter Drive, for instance, that there's the correct turning radius to get a truck round there without going out, swinging out into the lanes on the other side of the road. Are you saying you disagree with that?
We totally disagree with that.
Okay, would you be willing to work with our staff, if it eventuates, to get a better design of the corners to enable safer access for your trucks?
If the council prepared to purchase more land in that area to enable those turns to be made, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Just, I'm interested in your comment that cycling's already been banned, or Robbins anyway, banned by council in the area. Where did that come from? I'm not aware of that.
We have a school next to us on the property owned by Modern Transport, or the group, and the children aren't allowed to ride their bikes to school, to and from school.
Is that a council ban or someone else's ban?
That's a council ban as part of the resource management process.
Okay, well,
And
thanks.
the council said that there's no cycling.
Thanks for that information, because that's certainly news, I think, to most of us.
Well,
Yep.
to be honest, the report that I've seen that supports Rapid Rail, supports the rail service, is probably the most poorly prepared report I've seen in my life. There's no substance to it. There's no facts. There's no research. It's
Have you seen the business case that was presented on the rail service to the
It's the
government?
business case I'm talking about. It's lacking in detail. It's lacking in research. It's simply saying 200 passengers a day are expected, there's nothing in the report that supports that.
And you made the comment that Tainui had agreed with the Transport Hub that you agree is shown in the district plan because it was a bus-oriented one and that the train service was added later. Would it surprise you to know that it was the other way round? That the train service station was always envisaged and the bus service has only recently been added?
It would surprise me. That's not what we've made some inquiry with Tainui, and that's not what we've been told. So.
Okay, well, we're happy to provide documentation on that for you. Thanks.
Councillor Mark, last time. You're right. Okay. Just one question, if I may. The length of these trailers, 44 metres, and looking at the diagram here, when the trailer is open, it looks like it's 4.8 metres in width, and when it's closed up, it's 3.3. I presume these movements which you talk about are done under escorts?
Not all the time, but larger ones definitely under escort.
So how do you get away with that?
What do you mean get away?
Well, it's an over-dimensional load,
Yes.
which is operated during the hours of daylight.
Yep.
And your maximum width, of course, is 2.5 and 22 metres.
Well, we have permitted, so if they require permits, they get permits.
Yep.
So everything we do legally.
Okay, thanks.
And of course, the broad assumption here too is if you're talking about one trailer moving in one direction, what about two trailers moving in opposite directions, meeting at the same corner?
Sure. Yeah, 4.4, there's no room for anything else.
Well, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Okay. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is David Anderson. David, are you present? Oh, okay, just come forward, please, David. David, you're from Pulse Engineering, I understand?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you, is your business premises? Is this in this
Just
area?
on Gilbert Place.
Okay. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and at 9 minutes a bell will go, so you've got a minute to wrap up. If you don't take the full 10 minutes, we will be able to have a few questions from the councillors.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Anderson. I own Pulse Engineering Services in Te Rapa at present. We employ about 13 staff. We're looking at expanding. So we've purchased a bit of land down at the end of Gilbert Place there and going to put a building up of 2,000 square metres, looking for growth in the business. With the hub coming through here, I have a few concerns just around the, first off, how it could possibly impact our business movements and what we have in for the horizon. There's a lot of safety concerns that I have, just regarding the so-called city livers into an industrial area that they may not be familiar with the heavy vehicles, movements of vehicles. Also, with the hub, there's going to become a overflow of vehicles in the area, which is going to create parking problems for us, which we already sort of see down Gilbert Place at present. The roads are very narrow now. When you get a vehicle parked either side, they aren't double yellow lined or anything. It pretty much turns a road into a one-way road. With the heavy vehicles that we come in and out of our place, carting steel and tanks and bits and pieces that we manufacture, and that it will just create. We'll be stuck. We won't even be able to have any vehicle movements. The roundabouts, as the last man was saying, they are very tight. At present, there's a roundabout that is just painted on the road for that reason as well. Even in that sort of area, it's very tight around those corners. We don't see any roundabout at the intersection of the new road that's gone through that development next to us, and down onto Arthur Porter Drive. So the congestions down in that area, down towards the lights, it'll just be chaos through that area. Yeah, the base traffic, I can sort of see when you go into the base at present, on a normal business day is fairly packed, and then I believe that we work on Saturdays, and a lot of us do. When the base is absolutely chock full, people are going to be going and parking in this particular area over here, and then they'll be blocking up the roads and bits and pieces that will certainly impact on our business movements as well. I'm a little bit unprepared for this. I didn't realise I was going to be speaking, but yeah, I think that there's a better way to go about putting a hub in this zone.
The exact location?
Of where we are?
Yes.
We're right down the very end of Gilbert Place. We're lot 11 on the roundabout.
All right, right.
We're back onto Four Guys.
Okay. Being no further questions, thanks very much for your...
Just here. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks very much for your presentation.
No
And
problem.
thanks for popping in. Next one, I think, is Judy McDonald. I think, Judy, I saw you here somewhere. Yep. Start to come forward, please, Judy. Judy, you have 5 minutes, and I don't think you have a business operating in Te Rapa, do you? No, I didn't think so. No.
Well, at the risk of possibly being taken out and shot by some of the previous presenters, I am fully in support of the development of the Rotorua Transport Hub and indeed of the road closure at that point to all buses, cyclists and pedestrians? I speak as a representative of a pedestrian advocacy group, only as a member of that group, Living Streets Hamilton, but we have in the past noted that Hamilton has a dismal history of damaging pedestrians trying to cross roads, particularly to access public transport. In 1 year, we killed 2 elderly women trying to cross roads to get from one bus stop to another, and near misses have been relatively common. Often people using public transport are older. They suffer from disabilities that affect either movement or perception. This means that such people will be slower and they may fail to see or hear potential hazards. This doesn't mean they should have to put their lives at risk in order to be able to move around the city that they live in. The other potential victims are children who lack the judgment necessary to assess the risks involved in crossing near a bus stop, and they may act impulsively because they're small, drivers are often not as aware of them as they are of an adult. For all these reasons, I believe that keeping traffic away from public transport hubs is an obvious safety measure. The potential development of an overbridge across the railway line to access the base shopping centre and other bus services which work from there is an excellent idea, and it's one that I hope is made a reality as soon as possible, because it would allow users of public transport to stay completely out of the way of other vehicular traffic as they move from one area to another. And it's obvious that a number of local businesses are opposed to the closure of Tasman Road at the Transport Hub on the grounds that it will prevent access to their businesses. I was intrigued by this, and as a naive observer, yes, I've been out there and driven around the area to see what exactly is going on, and I admit I'm not a business owner. I do not operate large trucks which are oversized. But what I saw was that at present, at least, there are very few businesses actually in the immediate vicinity of that proposed hub. It's basically empty land. It's also possible to access, and is presumably already done, to access most areas from Foreman Road, which itself is quite tortuous and seems to be used on a regular basis by large vehicles. It's also obviously possible to access many areas from Arthur Porter Drive, which runs parallel to Tasman Road. At the moment, a logistics company, probably more than one, is based in this area with large trucks that obviously come and go on a regular basis. I can't personally see how this is going to be drastically affected by a small closure in Tasman Road at the point which is proposed. There are going to be alternative routes. Essentially, there's going to be a detour around the hub. This would be a short detour. Yes, I appreciate the point that for large vehicles, there are going to be some issues with the intersections. I would suspect that with adequate consultation with the council and with traffic planners, those details can be dealt with. If they can't, on what are presumably fairly major roads, then perhaps there is an issue with the size of vehicles that are being used in those areas, and perhaps that should be looked at as well. So my thought is that you've got existing routes that are already well used by trucks. It seems unlikely that a proposed minor detour is going to cause significant barriers or delays. To protect lives and encourage the use of public transport by providing a safe transport hub, it seems a relatively small sacrifice for local businesses to accept a detour by trucks visiting their premises. So given sensible consultation and input into the design, surely a compromise can be reached without endangering the lives of cyclists and pedestrians by putting them in the path of heavy vehicles. And I certainly do feel that council has a responsibility to its ratepayers, as mentioned by a previous presenter. It needs to provide safe, reliable transport to Auckland. At the moment, if anybody actually manages to get to Auckland in an hour and a half, I don't know when they're doing it or how, because it's many people's experience that it can take anywhere between 2 and 4 hours, depending on the accidents and the traffic congestion. If that can be done reliably by rail in 2.5 hours, that sounds like a much better bet to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Judy, for your presentation. Look, I can really hear you're concerned about public safety. It's a really important concern. Can I just ask, would you, it might not have so much to do with this now, but would you be in favour of a proper that we have actually a lack of driver training here, because we can make the roads as wide as possible and safe as possible, but if the drivers are still don't know how to behave,
Yeah,
what are we going to do?
That's a peripheral issue in this case, I think, because there is a huge direct issue with heavy traffic going through a public transport hub. But yes, certainly, I think we could do with a lot more driver training. Yeah, could do no harm at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Judy. Oh, sorry, did I miss you?
Thanks,
Yeah,
Judy.
go.
You said towards the end that these businesses have got big trucks and perhaps they shouldn't have big trucks. You're aware that they are there legally, under the district plan allows that?
I'm perfectly aware they're there legally. I'm questioning whether it's sensible.
That frequently they will need to get special permits to do transporting. So you're just saying they need to build smaller trucks?
I'm suggesting that, for one thing, that rail freight may avoid the need for some of the very large trucks, especially since you're going to have a rail hub extremely near some of these businesses. There will always be some very large objects that have to be transported on trucks from point A to point B. I appreciate that. You can't necessarily have everybody living next door to a railway line. However, at the moment, we have an exceptional emphasis on road transport of very large, very heavy objects. It's dangerous. It's bad for everybody. It means there's an awful lot of road repair being done, probably unnecessarily. And I think that it's, rather than trying to sustain the status quo, which is what we seem to be reliably doing, it's perhaps time we had a look at a different way of transporting materials that doesn't involve very large trucks that need incredibly wide roads built for them to accommodate them. Okay.
Andrew, I think I saw you down there somewhere.
Council there. So for clarity, and particularly for people in the room, the Regional Council's got the responsibility for providing the PT services, and the City Council has the responsibility for providing infrastructure. So obviously we're a really significant stakeholder and a really keen interest in the transport hub. So I'll briefly just talk about the context for the transport hub. I think that's important, why the hub's important in itself, and how that relates to the proposed bylaw changes. So this is a diagram out of the Regional Public Transport Plan, but it's articulating where the hub sits in terms of future network aspirations. So the red lines are articulating a concept of really high frequency services to assist with the growth of the city moving forward, but they're anchored at key hub locations. So Rotokauri, the base, is one of those major hub locations. It's really integral to the network. And I'll explain why it is integral to the PT network, and particularly the ability to grow the network over time. So part of our challenge at the moment in terms of transitioning to a more comprehensive network for the city is related to capacity. So at the moment, the PT facilities in this locality are located within the base. So there's four bus platforms. They can accommodate 4 buses at the time. We've currently got about 6 bus routes servicing this area, but we're all out of capacity. So that means we can't improve any more services, increase the frequency or extend more routes to this area. But there's been a significant amount of growth over the last 3 years. So over the last 3 years, we've extended 3 bus routes to this area. Patronage at this locations has doubled over that period, so from about 200,000 boardings to about 400,000 boardings per year, and we've currently got about 440 bus movements per weekday in the base. But our major challenge is we're at capacity, got no more space for improvements, which is a major constraint, not just for this area, but for implementing the entire network. So if you'd imagine a bus route connects with multiple areas, if we can't hub it into an area, we can't service the other parts of the city as well. So the diagram above just indicates how the proposed rail platform and bus platforms on Tasman Road relate to the base, with a pedestrian connection over the top. So with the provision of the facilities, it solves our capacity problem in this area, enables a significant amount of improvements, and it's worth probably just explaining for the committee what we would do with our services once the facilities are open. So at the moment we've got the Orbiter and the Norton routes which go into the base. From day one of the bus platforms on Tasman Road opening would just anchor those services on those platforms, and people would need to connect into the base and the broader area via the pedestrian network. So that would mean from day one there'd be about 170 bus movements per day on the Tasman Road platforms. The Orbiter service is particularly busy at the base, so it does about over 300,000 boardings just at the base alone on the Orbiter service. That means most of those people will be connecting back into the base, either for the base itself in order to transfer onto other services in that locality. So it'll be a very busy little area. So that's from day one. It'll be busy. In the longer term, but I sort of near future, we'd be looking to extend at least 2 additional routes to the Tasman Road platforms, which would bring the bus movements up to about 300 per day. It would further increase pedestrian movements at that location as well. Moving some services out of the base gives us capacity to increase services on the other side of the city as well. So really just absolutely integral in terms of transitioning to that more defined network for the city as a whole. So speaking to the Tasman Road platforms themselves, so the platform, the island design of the platform enables really efficient provision of bus services, and that's really important. So in terms of it enables, compared to alternative scenarios, it enables reduced travel time for passengers, a greater reliability of services, enables driver facilities. This is a really important one for us. There's been recent changes to the employment law, which drives a lot of cost into the PT system. Without the ability to facilitate driver breaks at locations like this, for the network as a whole, it can drive about $1 million a year additional cost into our system. So part of mitigating that is facilities like this where we can efficiently accommodate breaks for drivers and other staff. So fewer services required, lower buses. It ultimately leads to lower operating costs, facilities like this, and that translates to lower public subsidy requirements as well. So to put that in context, just for the services that we're planning to utilise at the Tasman Road platforms from day one and the 2 additional routes, if we weren't able to hub them at that location and to achieve the same level of integration within the base, it would cost us about $400,000 a year in additional operating costs just to be able to achieve that. So really sensitive to the design of the platform and bus facilities in this location. And it's probably also worth emphasising that from a public transport perspective, the ability to integrate with the rail is important, but the main benefit streams for the transport hub is associated with bus services, and that's from day one of operation as well. So just relating to that, the bylaw changes are very much around the safe operation of the system. So from a Waikato Regional Council perspective, we certainly strongly support them. Yeah. Welcome any questions.
Got Councillor Mark.
Andrew, the rail platform, you have to cross over the railway line to get to the rail platform. Is that right? If you're coming from the bus and the transport hub, you have to go over the railway line to get the platform.
Correct. Yeah. So the diagram above, you can see the pedestrian bridge is sort of indicated in purple. The access to those bridges are indicated by the orange shapes there. So yeah, in order to access into the base between the platforms, bus platforms, you certainly need to go over the rail lines.
But you're saying to get on the train, you've got to go over the railway lines as well.
Correct. Yeah. So the rail platform is again an island design, so it'd have rail lines either side of it.
Oh, I see.
In order to access the central platform, need to get over the lines. Yeah.
Why don't we put it on the terminal side so people don't have to cross the railway lines?
It's probably not a question I can answer in terms of the design of the platform.
It just seems to make a lot more sense that you don't have to cross a railway line to get onto the train, if that's what you major. I mean, it might be something staring me in the face, but it just seems reasonably obvious. If you are closing Tasman Road, wouldn't you just bring the platform over, plonk it there, then people don't have to cross a railway line to get onto the train?
Yeah, my understanding is there's been a lot of effort gone into different scenarios for the design of the platform. The specific rationale for landing on this particular configuration, I don't have off the top of my head, sorry.
Okay, I'll be keen to, I'll tap into that offline if that's all right. It just seems really obvious to me. There's a lot of the submitters here, you know, apart from the obvious, we have to travel further and the corners are tight, etc. A lot of them have raised very strong concerns about safety with a lot more congestion. You've got bikes, buses, cars, private cars, and pedestrians all using that area. Is that, their assumptions are 10,000 vehicles. How are we mitigating that?
10,000 vehicles?
Well, they're saying there's going to be 10,000 vehicle movements there as opposed to 4,000 at the moment. That's what I heard from some of the submitters today.
Along Tasman Road?
Yeah. How are we mitigating that? Where they're all coming together, because they are all going to come together at one point, aren't they, at those corners? Like the corner, for example, of the new Link Road, there'll be buses and cars and a lot more if this goes as well as everyone's anticipating, and bikes, etc. Are you absolutely comfortable that that's going to be a safe corner?
So I think the regional council's role is more around the design of services. The specifics around the safety of intersection, I'd have to defer to staff at the City Council. Yeah.
Okay, but it would be a discussion you've had though, wouldn't it?
Certainly a lot of discussions around how to safely facilitate movements in the entire area. The specifics around intersections definitely need to refer to City Council staff for that.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Okay, Councillor Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, mine was very similar to that. It was really, but it was about there's been concerns raised about the mix of buses, pedestrians, cyclists in that area immediately by the transport hub there on Tasman Road. Are you comfortable with the proposal as it stands, that it's safe?
In terms of, the proposed changes to make a portion of Tasman Road bus only certainly simplifies the operating environment and significantly reduces the potential for conflict between pedestrians, buses and other modes. I think that's a really significant factor and an important one. This will be a busy public transport location from day one, but it has a significant potential to grow as well. So in my mind, that's certainly a significant issue in terms of safety. The more we can reduce the potential for conflict, the better. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Thanks, Colin. That's the sum total of our submitters today. There's 1, 2, 4, about 4 who have not a non-appearance. So is there any questions now, just a bit of a wrap-up, because we're here just to hear the submissions, and the next week will be the decisions which will be made. So is there any, perhaps Chris, did I see Chris over there somewhere? Yeah. Do you want to come up, Chris? You can answer any questions or any which the councillors have as a result of some of these submissions. Oh, you got Lyle too? Yep. Oh, okay. Yep. So any of the councillors got any questions of, sorry. Get in bed. So the first one up is Mayor Andrew, please.
Chris, so there seems to be concern that the biggest legal trucks to the biggest sizes, the biggest dimensions that are legally allowed on the road without, obviously if they go bigger than that, you have traffic management or trucks that go in front and behind with orange flashing lights, you know, whatever you call them. So the biggest possible truck to get from Porters through these intersections down to the the south end of Tasman Road, can they negotiate these corners without clipping the curb and without crossing the middle line? Have these intersections been designed to do that or not?
So for clarity on that, the intersections have been designed to incorporate standard vehicle operations, which includes semi-trailers and B-trains, and all the intersections have been checked to make sure that they, all the tracking curves and paths are accommodated within the existing lanes for on all of the proposed alternative routes and intersections. It is designed as to appropriate industrial area standards for industrial roads, acknowledging the type of vehicles that are operating in the area. For vehicles beyond standard operating, so over-dimensioned vehicles, we've checked the paths of that, and certainly the intersections can accommodate vehicles operating in that area, but not necessarily staying within road lit. So they can get around the corners, but potentially would need to cross centre lines potentially, and that would be part of the permitting process around operating under those in those areas.
So just to be clear, to break it down into non-engineering talk, the biggest truck that you're allowed on the road that's not over dimension, so it doesn't require a pilot, can negotiate all these intersections without clipping the curb or crossing the middle line.
Correct.
So one coming in each direction through one of these intersections without being over dimension, you could have a truck going either way.
Correct. That's what our designs and modelling have demonstrated, yes.
So once you go over dimension, do you then have to have a pilot? Or how does it work? I mean, if you're over dimension, you're obviously going to cross the middle line. How do we negotiate? How does the company negotiate those corners?
So my understanding is that though movements of over-dimensioned vehicles is assessed on a case-by-case basis in regard to what those movements are, and would need to be assessed in terms of the type of vehicle, timing, frequency of those movements, etc. So I can't provide a standardised response in regard to that because they are assessed on a case-by-case basis. But they are able to operate around the network. It's just potentially that you might need to cross centre lines to operate over-dimensioned vehicles.
So your over-dimension vehicles can negotiate through these roads, but they may require more than their side of the road to do it?
Potentially, yes, yeah.
So whose responsibility is it when you're over dimension to ensure that you can get legally around these? I mean, we've got a testing station at one end, we've got porters at the other. Is it the city's responsibility? I mean, you've said the roads can do it, but they're going to cross the lines. Yep. Whose responsibility is to set up that traffic management process? Is it the city's responsibility, or is it the truck driver's responsibility?
So the city in consultation, and depending on where those movements operate, so if it's in the city network, I understand we undertake a permit process around that. If things are operating outside of just the Hamilton City, NZTA undertake the process around the permitting and approvals for those trips and vehicles. In terms of, and just to reiterate that these are designed to standard industrial road routes, and it's similar to everywhere else in the city in terms of the design standards and functionality of those road corridors and dimensions and intersection tracking.
So an over-dimensioned vehicle will, with planning, will be able to make it to the testing station at one end, and from Porters or Ratcliffe or whoever's going to be at the other end, they'll be able to negotiate those roads as long as it's planned, and if they're legal dimensions, they don't need any planning, they can just negotiate the roads.
Correct.
Within their side of the road.
That's right, yes.
Okay. and our roads are going to be able to take 50-tonne vehicles screwing on these intersections?
Yes, yeah, and all of the pavements have been designed to for those industrial movements and vehicle loadings.
Okay. Right, thank you.
Look, it's probably obvious, but just getting back to that question I was asking Andrew, I was probably asking the wrong person about that, about the placement of the platform on that side of the rail. Can you take me back to that discussion? Are you the right person to ask, or am I still asking?
Perhaps I can jump in there.
Yes.
So, there is a really important part of the developing the business case.
Yep.
So we went through quite a rigorous process with Kiwi Rail to look at all the options.
Right, yeah.
So obviously island platforms, platforms on either side, one on the north up line, one on the down line, or one on the side. So there's a lot of interaction operationally with the network.
Yep.
This is the preferred arrangement with Kiwi Rail in terms of not interfering with the operation of a very very busy line. If you go to a side, there's all sorts of complications about signalling and sidings, which really complicate the process and the operations of it. So we did go through an option selection, and this is the preferred option from Kiwi Rail.
Right, so this is, you're going to have an island, so it's in the middle of two railway lines.
Yep, and it's not uncommon.
No.
But it's in terms of operating a busy line with a lot of freight and having our passengers stop, that was a really key consideration.
So can the trains?
Sorry, you're missing a point there. It's a bit like the cars going north and south. They're on different sides of the road. And it's the same for the trains coming through there. There'll be one coming in one direction on one side of and the other direction on the other side. And if you were all having to cross to the one platform, because only one, there was only one track that could be accessed from that, you would have to actually cross over at points. I think one's about 5 k's north, and the other's about 1.5, 2 k's south in Te Rapa. So there's a big long blockage of the northbound lanes if you've got a southbound train crossing onto that track. That was what was put. We asked that. We expected it to be on that side to start with.
Yeah. No, I understand that. And then there's a lot of those in Auckland as well, aren't they, where they're in an island. So I was just thinking of the safety of getting people across and the efficiency of getting people across, but you've done the work. So thank you. That's answered my question. That's all.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I take it what we're basically raising things which will go in the deliberations report, which will be covered in that. Is that right? Because you're preparing a report for August 21. So these are issues you can address?
Yeah, so my understanding is that we've had a lot of written submissions.
Yep.
And we've taken that and we've put some analysis into this report. Today is about hearing submissions, and if there's any extra things that you've heard or you want us to address, that's what we'd like as an outcome of this meeting is a list of actions for us to go away for more information you want, and we can then address that in the deliberations report.
Yeah. So thanks, Chris. So just following on from Mayor Andrew, the issue of some of the corners and how trucks will negotiate some of these corners on proposed detour routes has come up today quite a bit. And I know Mayor Andrew's been teasing that out. I would still just like a little bit more work on that, a little bit more analysis on that, just to be absolutely comfortable with it, if that's possible.
Yep.
So we'll take that as certainly one area that councillors would like more information on when we come back.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks.
Ziggy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I've just got one question, and do you really feel that we've consulted enough with the businesses around? Have we done enough, or do we need to do more?
So in terms of the consultation process, acknowledging some of the responses earlier, so we put out sent out letters to the businesses on the consultation period opened on the 24th of June this year. There was letters sent out on the 25th. It was acknowledged that there was an open day on the 26th. So just to be clear, that was part of our Your Neighbourhood event in the Rotokauri area, so that was on that part of the city. So it wasn't a specific meeting set up around just this item. It was just an already planned discussion that was already going on, where there was going to be an opportunity if people did have the ability to come and attend that, to learn some more about the proposal. That was an opportunity to do that. The consultation period did last go out until the 21st of July. Letters were sent out to the businesses in the area, as well as a public consultation forum for that process in accordance with our standard public consultation processes and guidelines. So from my perspective, that the consultation process has been provided the opportunity for people to submit, and obviously today's discussion is a demonstration of that to a degree.
Okay, just quickly to recap to what you said. So on the 23rd, letters were sent out?
The 25th of July. Yeah.
25th, and you had a neighbourhood meeting on the 26th, and we know the postal that not everything ends up the following day in letterboxes. So, did we give that enough time? I'm just nervous about, and I heard one submitter saying they didn't get it till the day after. So are we really, do we consider all this, because we know that the postal service is not as it used to be?
Yep.
So have we considered that enough? I'm just hearing, hopefully I'm hearing right what some of the submitters are saying.
And to be clear, the Your Neighbourhood event wasn't a specific open day in regard to this event, and there were certainly other opportunities if people wanted feedback or further discussions with staff, or to seek those through further forums throughout that consultation period, which did last for 4 weeks over that time. So.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether we can do something a bit better, because I heard one of the submitters saying that, it might be the district plan, but, who has got the time? They're running busy businesses. Who has got the time to read the district plan, for a starter? Secondly, who has got the time to constantly go on our website and check what's happening and where should we submit and everything? So I'm just putting that out there. Are we doing enough, or are we just relying on people constantly to going online and checking constantly whether there's something that's happening in their neighbourhood that's important to them, or what could affect their businesses? So I'm just putting that out now. Yeah. So maybe we can look at that at some later stage and just look how we can make that a little bit better and a bit easier for the public to understand. I mean, it's nice to sit behind a computer and make that up and hope that people will look, but most people don't, and they haven't got the time. So, Yeah,
and we acknowledge that, and I think we've taken some good learnings out of this process as well in terms of how to implement that better moving forward.
Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, I've got a couple of questions. One is around those movements on Tasman Road, which came up at the July meeting. I'm just wondering if there's a chance that we can isolate out the trucks from the cars, the 4,500 movements a day leading up to 10,000 movements. It would be useful to have a look at how many of those movements are trucks along Tasman Road, as opposed to motor cars, which might perhaps have a little more respect for the plan changes under paragraph 10 than the trucks might, in terms of business necessity.
Yeah. So in terms of the existing vehicle movements, we can do some analysis behind that to understand that the current mix of heavy vehicles versus normal, light vehicle movements in the area. In terms of the growth predictions to the 10,000 vehicles a day moving forward, to be honest, that was the first I'd heard of that, and I'm not sure where that information came from, so just need to do some validation behind that as well.
Sure, Mr. Chair, I've written that down as a second sort of issue. I'm hearing you'd like more information on that, on the traffic, the composition and the growth, so we'll bring that back to the deliberation.
Yep, thank you. And my second question is around if we are adamant that paragraph 10 for those regulatory changes are required, then have we got some alternatives to citing the rail station where we've currently got it cited? Are there some options that we might recite that rail station somewhere else at Te Rapa? Or can we look at alternative sites around the city and you know, maybe Claudelands, for example, where we have already got land and some parking options?
From my perspective, the site is locked down. It's been in our district plan. We are working on a mass transit plan, and sites at Claudelands and other places will come up for discussion with council over time. I think today is about how we make this site work. So we're talking about Tasman Road and some changes to Tasman Road to make it safe for all users. So it's not really in the scope of this meeting about the location of the PT site. Well, that's been locked in the district plan and a business case in terms of the rail service. This is, from my perspective, just how we make this safe and make it work.
Thank you.
Head around the friendliness of our district plan. It's picking up Councillor Henry's point and trying to get my head around if you're going to invest a swap of money to purchase a property, there's due diligence for your investors, right? So it's not a table, you know, there's a fair bit of research before you locate a property, right? Because obviously you're going to do all that. And I'm just trying to work out, one, obviously can our district plan information process be improved so the due diligence, which I would expect with any investor on behalf of the people who are putting their money in, you know, would know what was coming up. I then want to zero in on the actual street, you know, the letterbox delivery. With respect, I don't think that the so-called neighbourhood open day is at all relevant in Norton for this particular process. Do any of you, Chris, do you have a comment on our district plan? Can we improve that? I mean, so what I'm saying is, you know, district plan is the longest term document. Yep. And one would expect that in plain black and white, before I purchase a property, obviously, before I invest on behalf of my shareholders, I will do research, but I just want to make sure how friendly our plan is to be crystal clear about what is intended.
Yeah, so look, certainly that information was in the district plan. I do recall at the time, and councillors presided over the Rotokauri structure plan process. Mm-hmm. So the location of this site was subject of an appeal. So there was a lot of discussion about this site, and the result of that was to put the site here and a supplementary site to the north. So there was a lot of consultation at the time. I take your point, how friendly is it when time marches on to understand what that means. It was there, and it's a due diligence issue, I think, for people moving in there, as was the closure of Tasman Road. You'll see from the attachments was anticipated as well in the district plan.
Can you just give me a sense of when it was first, you know, if I'm living there, when was it first mooted that Tasman Road would be?
So it was going back to, I think, 2010 or earlier, something of that time. So I just wanted to clarify one point. So the engagement we carried out for this, remembering that once again, the scope of this meeting is changes to Tasman Road. So the consultation we carried out was in paragraph 34 of your report. So the letters that went out, what we did is we drew a big circle around all of the people that we thought would be affected directly by this. Every single person in that circle should have got a letter. The main purpose of the letter was to enclose an information pack of what was happening, and an invitation to have their own meeting if they wanted more information. Coincidental to that was the information that we were having a broader community consultation day a few days later, and that would be another opportunity. But the main point of the letter was to enclose an information pack with all of the information. So I just wanted to clarify that. We did not rely on people to go and find it themselves on the website. We enclosed the information pack with every single letter. And you can see we had other ways of communicating, engaging on this as well.
So the letter was sent out on what date?
It was sent out on the 25th, I understand.
How was it sent?
How was it sent? Well,
Yeah.
I think we engaged a...
Yeah, was it?
Sorry?
Was it postal or hand delivered? Okay, yeah. Postal delivery.
Well, you see, with respect, a lot of businesses, businesses will receive a whole heap of mail. You've got the front counter person. Oh, is that just another sort of rates reminder update from council? Goes off in tray, and I'm just saying the significance of this particular letter will be pretty crucial, which we've found out, and I'm just wondering, given the time and resources, it would appear to me to be a walk-in addressed to the Managing Director, Chief Executive, whatever, that'd be, I would have thought that was one thing, because then you're absolutely rock solid, because this is not just turning up for neighbourhood consultations. I'm just wanting to zero in, and I think when you do your report for us, could we actually talk about how this could be done a bit better? Because with respect to our New Zealand Postal Services, that potentially is some of these businesses get tons of, it's a bit of a hit and miss, I think.
Look, I totally accept that, and as Chris said, I think there's some lessons learned, and we'll look at that. As an example, I did go out and meet a business where they had got the letter, but the letter came into the receptionist and they didn't understand the significance of that letter and hadn't passed it on. So exactly what you said is true. So we will look at that. So
and I think another example is given by one of the submitters where in another part of Frankton that seemed to be better. Like it was an example. So, but if we could just pick that up in the report, because obviously, through the chair, what we want to make sure that in the end that our process is, you got the district plan, get that, but this bit in terms of the micro detail of as part of that plan is sufficiently, robust. The final question, the business case with vehicle movements, do you have any comment on that? The business case has been criticised. And I don't necessarily want to go beyond the specifics of Tasman Road, I accept, but I just don't know if you had any observations on that.
So once again, I assume the business case is the business case for the Hamilton to Auckland startup passenger rail service. So it's not in the scope of the decision in front of council. But look, it was a really comprehensive business case that New Zealand Transport Agency put a lot of review work into and are still reviewing it. So it is a comprehensive business case that has had a lot of reviews.
Okay, thank you.
Just picking up Councillor Jeff's point too, I'd just like to see a little bit more worst case scenario modelling around these corners and the size of the truck trailer units that we've heard today. It sounds, with respect, there's been a lot of desktop stuff, but I'd like to see some visual analysis worked in conjunction with these key stakeholders. I think that's really important. Just also, you mentioned about the roads are going to be sufficiently stable to handle this sort of heavy infrastructure. What key learnings have we taken out of that Porter Drive rip-up? Was that under spec, or some of this might be PX, but was it under spec? Was it poor performance, or have we re-spec to prevent that happening?
So Arthur Porter Drive early failures was a number of reasons. So in our view, some construction methodology issues. So look, we up and down the country, I think there's been a few failures, so there's a lot more focus on the pavement design specification and methodology for constructing it. I think what I heard from the submitters today was the intersections, and when you've got heavy vehicles, turning really sharply at intersections, and were our intersections robust enough to deal with those shear stresses of the turning circles? I'm not sure of the design, but we'll take that into account, and it might be that we use an asphalt type product or a different SMA product or something to deal with that. So it's a technical issue that councillors should be confident that we will deal with.
Thanks. And, sorry, one more. The car parking, and I'm happy to take this offline, this is slightly out of scope, but the pictures here look like they've maybe got 150 cars, and I just want to know that we've got, we're not building an undersized car park that's going to be at capacity before we begin, and secondly, there's going to be a process to ensure we're not just helping the base extend their shopping program. Thanks.
But that has been raised within the both of those issues within the working group, so there are answers to it.
So, the councillors may recall that we bought about 6 hectares of land. So this facility that we're building now is on 3 hectares of it. So we have got extra land for that very purpose to put additional car parks on. Yep, we've certainly understood the issue about controlling parking on here for park and ride. So it's an operational response that we're aware of and we need to deal with.
Day one, so will the train be. I had a couple of follow-up points. One was really follow-up to Ryan and Jeff's point about some really strong visual description or depiction of the turning radiuses and what will actually happen with a truck there. I asked Modern Transport that question, would they work with staff on that? I think that's important that they actually do that, and maybe I've got this feeling we might be meeting the required legal standards for a truck and trailer, but should we not err on the side of allowing more room if we're going ahead with that? That's, I think we should over-spec rather than bottom line the sort of specs in this area, because our experience in other industrial areas, and I'm thinking of Duke Street in Frankton, is that to get round corners, trucks are cutting every corner and smashing every curb we've got. So let's think that tends to happen anyway with the best will in the world. How can we? So I'd like staff to come back with information on how the design can take account of minor variations in pathways of heavy vehicles, that sort of thing, and all the routes sort of through there probably. You know, you maybe don't want a raised curb and channel. You want a sort of one of those soft curves so that you're not going to rip it off or smash it the first time a truck goes. So that's one issue. I'd like to hear back on that. Just regarding when this was in the district plan, I asked staff, Nathan and you beforehand, Chris, just wondering if we can actually hunt down when it first came up, maybe in the Rotokauri structure plan, which then got transferred to the district plan, and what was said about it then. So just to back up whatever happens later on down the line, we've actually got some evidence of when it came, and because I can recall lots of consultation out there with some of the players that are in that area at the moment, like Porters for one, were heavy submitters at that time. Thanks.
Yeah, so can we just, I presume this has all been noted down, Amy. So can we ask staff to actually directly go and talk with Modern Transport? I mean, these guys are big men, big employers who've been in our city for a long time, and they're very, very good for our economy. And just maybe Chris, somebody from your team, one of the Chris's, to actually make an appointment and go and talk to them. I'm surprised that no one from any of these companies has actually come and talked to me or tried to make an appointment with me, and I'm always available, and so nobody has from this area. But I think it's time that we probably go back and talk to them before our next meeting on this, and things like what Dave's talking about, wider roads, soft curbs, you know, this type of thing to enable these over-dimensioned vehicles to negotiate these intersections that we haven't even built yet. two of them. And we own some of the land where we can still redesign what we've got here on this last corner down here, that we can give some of our land up to accommodate making this above what the standard spec is for a standard vehicle. So are you comfortable with that? One of you, Chris's?
Yep, and to be clear, I think we've had some dialogue and some meetings previously, but absolutely comfortable with committing to further engaging in that moving forward. Yep.
Okay. And I guess probably speaking for all elected members, we're probably a little bit disappointed with the consultation process relying on mail. I know we might have covered it as far as the law goes, but we probably wouldn't have the bad feeling in this room if we'd knocked on doors and spoken to business owners rather than receptionists and courier posted things, and just maybe we need to go a bit above and beyond what the legal requirements are in the future on these types of things.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to ask another question. I'm second guessing here, but I suspect that the petition arose because of this perceived lack of consultation period and so forth. And I'm just wondering if we could perhaps get some clarification from Democracy in a bit more detail as to why the petition has been declared invalid. I know we got a little bit of a verbal conversation this morning, but I'm not sure whether or not, I'm uncertain as to how you've matched that against standing orders, but I'm following on from perhaps the last two questions where we may be able to resolve the fact that it is invalidated by some degree of consultation now with the parties, because I suspect that this petition has come from the groups who have submitted this morning.
Just one thing which I'd like to have a little bit more information on. These trailers which are built by Modern Transport, they're massive machines. I've seen them in a previous life. And I'd like a little bit of information, if we could, on the Vehicle Dimension and Mass Rule 2016, because I'm a little bit rusty on that now. And the whole idea of that is to create a reasonable balance between an oversized vehicle and the efficient operation of the heavy motor vehicle fleet and the constraints which are imposed on that by our roading network. Because I know they've got permits to operate once they're over 2.55 and once they're over 22 metres long, but from memory I think it was 4.2 is when they had to have their own individual pilot vehicle. Now, some of these vehicles, of course, which are manufactured by Modern Transport are over 4.2 when they're open, and the presenter said they're all permitted, sure, but whether or not they need their own individual pilot on these occasions is another issue. So if we could have a little bit of information on that, it'd be appreciated. Okay, well that brings to an end the questions, and we... Oh, who else is sneaking in here? Last chance, Gary.
I wonder if we could just, I know the petition was invalid, but can we have it circulated, please, in the same way that we listened to people up here who hadn't got signatures and things like that? Can it just be circulated to us? Thank you.
A go at a comment because of what I heard before, and I hear that you have tried to connect with some of the business owners and you've tried to listen to them. Now, there's two different things with listening, though. Have they been heard? We might listen, but have they been heard what they say? That's one thing. The other thing is, have we got already so many preconceived ideas about what we want to do that we're not hearing what the people say? So it's just a comment.
Point of order.
Sorry.
Is that not the question that us, the political representatives, have to decide on? That's unfair to put that on staff, I would suggest.
Okay.
Yeah, we decide that.
Yeah, we do, but we...
Deputy Mayor.
This hearings, which is defined by legislative process, we're obviously required keep an open mind, and that's assumed, which we all do have. Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if you could clarify me, and I recognise I'm a layperson, unlike your own historic, background in this area, in terms of the size of trucks and the legal thing of pilot vehicles, because I just want to zero in, even if we did nothing, right, and Tasman Road stayed as is, Foreman Road, which I've always noticed was a windy road, and I noted also Tasman Road was closed off from Avalon Drive, when the I'm just trying to work out what is currently, what is currently allowed, what our network, one, accommodates in terms of these heavy vehicles, and just also help me with a bit of detail about what the Chair was talking about, with the requirement of pilot vehicles, once it goes over a certain size. I'd just really like to get my head around that, if I could. Thank you, it'd be very helpful.
Okay, there'll be no further questions. We'll adjourn the meeting now until, we have got a motion too, haven't we? What's page that's on the? Yep. So we have a staff recommendation now. I will move the staff recommendation, which is on page 14. Do I have a seconder? All those in favour? Anybody against? Carried unanimously. We'll adjourn the meeting now until, 12:30 for the rest of it? Does that give you enough time? Okay. And we will reconvene in Committee Room 1 at 12:30. Thank you very much. What, 12:30?